we are going to be talking about a book event that was promised to be a fantasy event of your dreams, a weekend filled with vendors, authors, panels, content creation rooms, etc. And this event failed to deliver by an absolute mile. This is the Million Lives Book Festival. So, this is the management page that was advertising this book festival. This is the information. It was described as the perfect event to make friends, vendor panels, etc. It was from May 2nd to 3rd, located at the Baltimore Convention Center in Maryland. A lot of promises, and we can look at the tickets. The tickets start at $50 for the page turner tier that gives you access to the vendor hall, cosplay meetups, and content creation room only on Sunday. For $150, you get access to the vendor hall, cosplay meetups, panels, you get a swag bag, and the creation room on May 2nd and 3rd. And for the $250 tier, you get access to the vendor hall, cosplay meetups, panels, swag bags, and access to the Lavender Romance Ball. So a fantasy ball was also promised for the highest tier. I personally find this pricing structure a little bit interesting, mainly because you don't often hear the price of one day being less than half of the price of going both days, right? Because to attend both days, your ticket is $150. To attend only one day, your price is $50. So just from like a business standpoint, when you price it this way, this is not a recommended pricing structure because it would discourage people from paying for a higher tier, which is from a business standpoint, what you don't want to do, right? This is why they will typically make the price of one day X amount, but they will make it maybe only a little bit more to buy the 2-day ticket. So that's why when you look at the price of the 2-day ticket, you're going to be like, well, it's only a little bit more than the 1-day ticket, so I might as well go. Here's an example. This is for Head in the Clouds. It is a music festival that was hosted in LA this past weekend that I just went to, right? Their Saturday ticket is $225. Their Sunday ticket is $225, right? So for one day you pay $225, but to go 2 days, if you get the tier 1 ticket, it's only $300. So for only $75 more, I say only within context, right? Relative to the $225 ticket price, you can just go 2 days. So this way, with a pricing structure like this, it would encourage people just to go buy the 2-day ticket instead, because you're like, well, I might as well. If I'm already paying this much for the ticket, I might as well just buy the 2-day. And then a lot of people will upsell to the VIP. The VIP tier 1 is $450. So one of my friends, her literal thought process was, well, if I'm already paying $300 for GA, I might as well just pay the extra $150, buy VIP, then I can be closer to my favorite artists. But yeah, so here are just some of the authors that are attending or that were attending the Million Lives Festival. A lot of authors were slated to attend. By the way, I don't want you flaming or dogging on any of these authors because these people all got scammed, right? The authors were promised a very popular event with a lot of attendees that they could go and sell and market their books to. It sounds like a good idea for authors to go to. So it makes sense, unless the event lied about what was happening. We have a thread posted on Threads by Hope E. Davis, author, posted May 4th. And Hope writes, so many people are asking what happened at a Million Lives Book Festival, so I'm gonna try and sum it up here. Authors are charged a $150 table fee and told at some point 500 to 600 tickets were sold. Only about 50 people showed up. There were no badges as promised. When asked, we were told they all arrived broken, but there were no replacements, so anyone could just come and go as there was no way to verify who was an author, reader, or a random person off the street. Is such a scam for the authors. This is how the authors got scammed, right? Because the authors likely thought, wow, this is a new event that's coming up. It's a great way to get my book, my work, my craft in front of a new set of eyes. $150 table fee. Okay, well, we'll take the table fee, we'll pay it, we can make up the difference in the book sales, because if there's 500 to 600 people coming, well, that's a fair amount of people that we can sell to. 50 people showed up, and that doesn't make sense. They must have lied about the 500 to 600 number, because there's no way only 10% of people who bought tickets showed up. That's just not possible. Hope continues, some authors paid extra to sponsor the event. The items and info they sent to the sponsor, the event disappeared into the void. Attendees and sponsors were promised swag bags, and none were delivered. Some bags were handed out, but they were event themed for the event and did not feature sponsor info. There were no decorations for the ball or signing. There wasn't food as promised, nor did I see a cash bar at the ball as promised. No official schedule was ever posted of the panels. But wow, look at this. Not releasing a schedule of the panels? That's just poor management of the event in general. Because how are people supposed to know what panels they want to go to and attend and listen to and schedule their day if you don't post the panel? Panel authors are given very little info on the panels, and some authors never even received the info for the panels they were on. Panels were too large, with panel members exceeding those attending the panel in almost all cases. That is also crazy, to have a panel where there are more panelists than attendees because your event had so little people attending because you never marketed the event. There was no music at the ball, no way to make announcements. The event organizer would simply shout when it was time for a lunch break, etc. But the room wasn't actually closed for lunch, making it difficult for authors to feel okay about stepping away from their tables. There's probably more, honestly. I didn't see everything that was going on. This is just what I saw and experienced. I don't think any author made a profit, and most like myself didn't even sell enough to make their table fee. Thanks so much to the other authors that bought from me, which is the only reason I'm not crying in a corner right now. I took a huge loss on the weekend, but at least I sold something. I sent most of the 100 books I ordered for the event with Katie Read and Writes, but I can't imagine what some authors are going through right now, trying to ship books back or return them because they can't take them with them. Happy to answer any more questions you have. You have to think about the cost the author is going to incur too, because the author doesn't just lose the $150 table fee, right? The authors, if they're not local, loses travel fees. They're going to have to fly in from wherever they live into Baltimore for this event, expensive. It's a 2-day event, so they must pay for more than 2 nights of hotels, plus more, right? Because you fly in the day before, you fly out the day after. So probably 3 nights of hotels that you have to pay for. And then product shipping, because books are heavy. So if you don't live local and you can't just truck your book back to wherever you live in a big old U-Haul or something, right? You had to ship the books to the venue. And imagine a shipping cost for 100 books. Imagine how expensive that's going to be. So these authors paid a lot of money to come to this event with the promise of getting their name out there, being able to make sales, whatever, and were horrifically let down by how poorly this was organized. The thing that makes me so sad is the author community. All the authors are so supportive of each other. They're buying books from each other, even though they are already incurring a massive loss by attending the event themselves. They still want to support their fellow authors by buying books. Man, come on. Ugh, my heart. So here we have a statement from a Threads account going by Bookish Events Manager. Statement regarding A Million Lives Book Festival. Four Seasons Books was not affiliated with A Million Lives Book Festival at any time. While we were approached by the event organizer to serve as the indie bookstore partner, we ultimately declined after reviewing the event logistics. On February 25th, 2025, our event manager inquired about the status of ticket sales and anticipated attendees. The organizer stated they had sold mid-500 tickets, expecting between 600 to 800 attendees. But okay, one thing that I'm confused about too, right? If you've sold around 500 tickets, where are you getting the 800 attendees number? A separate conversation between our team and the organizer took place on February 26th, in which we clearly communicated that we would not be participating. We declined politely and clearly because we were unable to source most of the featured books wholesale and had concerns about logistics. Despite this, we have since learned that our name may have been used in communication with authors or attendees as though we were a confirmed partner. This is categorically false. We sincerely apologize to any authors who were misled by that claim, and we want to be clear. We were not involved with this event, did not provide books for sale, and did not authorize the use of our name. We are heartbroken for the authors who were impacted by poor communication or unmet expectations. We stand firmly for transparency and accountability in literary event planning and will continue to prioritize partnerships that respect and protect authors, booksellers, and readers alike. And a commenter says, I don't understand though. Is the organizer definitely a scam artist, or was it a person that got in over their head and didn't know how to properly run something? And Bookish responds, I think it's a case of somebody who was in over their head, but when organizers withhold key info like ticket sales, logistics, or financial shortfalls, they're no longer figuring it out. They're veering into fraud territory. It likely falls under misrepresentation or deceptive business practices, and if there was financial harm involved, which many authors are now reporting. So I heard through the grapevine, right, that this Archer management has hosted events prior, and that this was not the first event they've hosted, which is why it's odd that this went to poop so bad. So let's look at TikTok, because there's a lot of videos that we could go look at. So here we have a video posted by Percy J, fantasy author.
Oh yes, this was real. This was a real fantasy ball that I just attended not even 12 hours ago.
Do you see that? This was the fantasy ball. Office tables and office chairs, guys.
Hi, I'm Percy J. And I attended a Million Lives Book Festival in Baltimore. It was even worse than what you're seeing. It is 6 a.m. I have no voice. My body hurts, but I'm not getting sleep. So I might as well tell y'all exactly what happened. And this is going to be a video done in multiple parts because there's no way I could even fit this all into 10 minutes. But yes, I am still in bed. We'll talk about where I am in a second. And I'm in my pajamas because it's literally less embarrassing to be seen as a Dallas Cowboys fan than it was to be an author at this event. Before I get into the tea, I need to set some ground rules. Everything I am talking about is something that I have seen with my own eyeballs or heard with my
love
own
legal
ears.
logistics.
Even if I did experience it and it's not my story to tell, I have permission from others to tell the story. And if I do put tea in here that I did not personally experience but only knew through other people, I will let you know that all of those facts are alleged, but are important to the context of the overall story.
On a complete side note though, TikToker has really pretty eyes and I'm just like...
So before we talk about the viral disaster that was that ball, I have to channel my inner AP US history teacher and go to the events leading up to section. Because this story starts 18 months ago, because that's when we all put our deposits down. So I put down my $150 table fee back in February of 2024. I am not from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm from Texas. Which, yes, besties, I flew out for this, but I got in because a lot of my friends were going too.
That's the thing I was talking about, right? These authors don't just pay the table fee, but travel on top of that, and the travel is expensive.
I knew a lot of people attending because the creator reached out to a lot of people who were already pretty prominent in the indie-verse sphere. And honestly, I was like, the table fee is $150, why not? I'd paid more to be at events. And because so many people were going that I wanted to see and hang out with, I planned a lot of major life events around A Million Lives. I'm currently pregnant with twins. I planned my pregnancy around this event like a clown.
Oh, I'm a twin. I hope you have a great pregnancy. I am shocked at how, like, this author is so dedicated for this, and I'm shocked at how the massive mismanagement of the event must have impacted their life.
I scheduled my uncle-in-law's funeral around this event. I even paid extra to sponsor this event. And let's get into that, shall we? Because you know I brought the receipts, girl. Peep the date. After Christmas of 2024, I reached out to Archer Fantasy Events to sponsor A Million Lives. I ended up picking the highest tier of sponsorship because I'm just like, $250, why not? It's a good deal. So I was supposed to get my logo on the website, an author takeover day in the Facebook group, an author focus day with several posts about me and my books on social media, a medium window or floor decal, where those were supposed to go, I don't know, and my logo on the tote bag. Now, I have been to other events before.
So let's just look at the tiers too. The Book Lover is the free tier where you donate items for the VIP bag, so art, prints, bookmark, business cards, etc. For $100, you can get your logo on the website, an author takeover day in the Facebook group, author focus day with several posts about you and your books on social media, and a small window or floor decal. So I'm just thinking from like a logistical perspective, right? For $100, your profit margin is really low. That's what I'm confused about, right? Because a floor decal, a window decal, I don't know where that's going, but I'm just thinking making the decal alone, you're gonna have to hire a graphic designer to make it, or you're gonna have to make it yourself. So the time it would take to make the graphic alone, bare minimum $30. Like bare minimum. I'm saying this is if you did it yourself. That's how much your time will be worth going into Canva or Adobe Express and like slapping the author's face, name in together. Then you have to go print it and get the decal made and shipped back to you. And maybe you're making a whole bunch of people's decals together, but that's probably at least like $20 per decal. So you're out like $50 alone just on the floor or window decal. And not even counting like the social media post, the value of that, etc. Like $100 for that is really low. So your profit margin from that is going to be really small. Now, the second issue that I also see with this is because the pricing is so low, too many people are going to sign up for it. Then you're going to have to do too much promo that you don't have the capacity to do. Reasonably, you would price things in a way to anticipate demand. And let's say okay, I only have the resources to accommodate 20 people in the bookworm tier. and 10 people in the highest tier. Then you should price accordingly and make the bookworm sponsorship tier maybe $500, and to make the wyvern tier maybe like $2,000. Now, of course, we're talking about indie authors, and the amount of money indie authors have is definitely smaller, which definitely makes the pricing more understandable as to maybe, okay, they're trying to lower the pricing to make it more affordable for indie authors. I totally get that. I support that. We support small business authors. I just think from a business standpoint, though, it just does not make sense. And I think it's interesting. I don't know how these things work, but the pricing structure sounds like it's just doomed to fail, honestly.
And my logo on the tote bag. Now, I have been to other events before where I've seen events do all of these things for other people. So I sent them all of my things, my headshots, my covers, my logo, all that stuff. And on January 20th, they received my $250. So if anyone wants to come out and say that I never actually paid for anything, and if you're confused, Book Lover was a free sponsorship tier. By free, that just means if you bring swag, like stickers, bookmarks, art, whatever, people have done wax melts in the past, candles, those get put in the swag bags for the VIP attendees. But we'll get to the swag bags in a minute. Put a pin in that. Hold on to that for a minute. I'm trying to explain this in chronological order. But after that email exchange, it's pretty much crickets. I did not, in fact, get my sponsorship tier.
I think it's also interesting there's a $50 assistant fee. What is the assistant fee for?
For how many items we needed to bring for the VIP swag bags.
That is bad. That is really bad. Being like, hey, for the free tier, give us stuff for the swag bags, and you don't tell them how many things they need to bring. And of course, you should overestimate, because there's going to be situations where people lose bags, whatever. But like, that is crucial information you should tell people.
I know what you're thinking, Percy, why didn't you say something earlier whenever you knew that this wasn't going to be done? Because at the end of January, I got pregnant with my twins, and I stopped being active on social media for a while.
By the way, again, I don't want anybody blaming the authors like you should have asked. No, it's the event organizer who should have presented all this information to the authors. Why is it the author's job to hound the event organizers for all the information on how the event should run properly?
And frankly, I came into this event thinking, you know what, it's $250, whatever. It's not worth my peace. But little did I know that peace was never an option. About 2 weeks before the event, I actually went on the event's website to see what I was actually, getting into. And I started counting the number of authors, vendors, and narrators that were actually coming to the event. It was slated at somewhere around 120. Those kind of numbers are huge. But I had not seen any advertising on behalf of the management company.
This is what most people, myself included, think is the reason why the event flopped as hard as it did. Because the event was advertised as being such a high-ticket event, all these promises, and there was no marketing behind it. You didn't hear about the event. Nobody knew the event was happening. I'm in the book community. Okay, this is my current read right here. Okay, I love books. I read 50-something books last year. That's my big tangent. As somebody who's really into books, I did not hear about this event. I am up in book talk.
Mathing in my brain, because you cannot have 100+ authors, vendors, narrators and not advertise. And then I saw only posts on Archer Fantasy Events socials were offering the tickets at 40% off. That's when I knew that ain't nobody was coming. That's when I knew. I luckily did not ship any books to Baltimore. I just took what I could fit in my suitcase. But we'll get to that later. So I was going to stay with my friend and fellow author Callista Neath. We were going to be staying at the Hilton that is connected to the Baltimore Convention Center. Does it look like I am in the Hilton to you? Featured authors got their rooms paid for free by Archer Fantasy Events.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so that makes sense, right? Like featured authors, featured creators, events do this, right? I was a featured creator at VidCon. They paid for my housing. They to bring me there.
Allegedly. And on the Wednesday, before we all flew out, the featured authors got an email saying, hey, my rep at the Hilton has not been answering my phone calls or emails over the past week. Why wasn't this situated over a month ago? And said that she couldn't confirm bookings. And so she was
That is so bad. What do you mean you didn't know? Until a week before. Huh?
instead moving all the featured authors to the Days Inn across the street. Y'all look at this. There are freaking scratch marks on this bed, bro. And we are authors with these heavy suitcases and boxes. This place did not have a wheelchair ramp. My pregnant ass had to be carrying these 50+ pound suitcases upstairs. And so my expectations are getting lower and lower and lower. The bar was on the floor, but it went to hell real fast. More coming in part 2, because I told y'all this would be long.
Wow, that's bad. That's really bad.
Welcome to part 2 of my experience at the Book Talk Fire Festival, A Million Lies, DashCon 2.0, whatever you guys want to call this event. And I'm sorry, I'm heading back from the airport, so the lighting is terrible and the sound quality is probably garbage. But y'all have waited long enough for the tea, so I'm giving you the tea. So we left off at the lead up, and now let's talk about the actual event. So registration started at 8, and the authors and vendors all went to the event to start setting up as early as 7 a.m. Only problem is we weren't given directions on how to get into the convention. For those of you who don't know, usually whenever you fly into bookish events, we move our stuff with suitcases. So we're bopping around the streets of Baltimore at 7 a.m. with these suitcases full.
They didn't tell them like a loading dock, like come in from this entrance, come in at this time. Wow.
Of like 70-pound books. Nary an instruction in sight. There's no signs, there's no streamers or balloons saying, hey, book festival this away. Don't know where the event organizer is. But security came in clutch and helped us navigate the convention center. And that will be a reoccurring theme. The security at the convention center was 10 out of 10. They deserve all the praise. I'm getting ahead of myself. So this was the original author, vendor, narrator setup.
By the way, just take a look at the distance between the estimated tables, and then you'll see it in the photos later.
I was number 2 over here. All of my friends and other authors and vendors that I knew were also on the same row with me, so I was so jazzed to be with my friends. Put a pin in that, we'll get back to that later. Yeah, but when we got into the convention center, this was not the setup. Some of you who may have been to conventions before see this setup and go, hold up, I don't know if that's gonna fly with fire code. And guess what? This wasn't gonna fly with fire code. So this was all completely different. Instead of having 2 big rows and then a bunch of like other rows like this, it was all just up and down horizontal, which completely messed up everybody's table setup. No one knew where they were going. It was absolute chaos. Also, we got an email from the event coordinator a few days before the event saying, let's clear up some rumors, which that's a heck of a way to start an email, I'll tell you what. But she said, I don't know why people are saying we won't have tables, we'll have tables, and we'll have tablecloths. I'm like, that's kind of a given. I really wonder why this is an issue. But the tables were indeed there. The tablecloths, however, were not. And of course, if you're setting up a table, you have to put the tablecloth on first. So a lot of people were just standing around on their tables waiting for these magical tablecloths to appear. Luckily, because authors and vendors and narrators are the best people in the world, we were just helping each other out. A lot of people had extra tablecloths we were letting each other borrow. I brought my own. There were a few tablecloths the event provided, but they were already packaged and there weren't very many of them. So that was tough getting set up. So the vendor hall opened at 10 a.m. and the attendees started rolling in. But keep in mind, this is Friday, so this is a VIP only event. So only the people who paid for either the Cloud Walker or the Dream Walkers could come to this event.
I think it's weird again that they did Friday as VIP only. I also think it's interesting. I didn't realize it was a Friday and a Saturday. I think it's interesting they chose to host the event Friday and Saturday and not Saturday and Sunday if it's a 2-day event. Because it makes sense for 3-day events to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Anime Expo will do that. I don't often hear of a 2-day event falling on a Friday and a Saturday because oftentimes people work Monday through Friday, right? Depends on your job, right? Some people do work on the weekends, etc. But I just think it's an interesting choice. Maybe they couldn't get the venue on Sunday, so they had to move it to Friday, Saturday.
Y'all, there were maybe 30 people. And this was an all-day situation. I don't even know if this panel happened. We had our lunch break at noon, and to announce the lunch break, the event organizer walked into the event hall and just screamed that we're taking a lunch break. No bullhorn, no PA system, just everybody get out. But also, here's the tea. The event hall wasn't locked for lunch break. People didn't want to abandon their tables if people were still there. Also, we didn't have badges. The badges broke. The VIP ticket holders didn't have swag bags. The swag bags were thrown away by the convention center.
That's weird. The convention center would not just throw it away. They just wouldn't. Doesn't make sense. So what happened to it, right? I just think this is so weird of a event because the whole swag bag situation is already weird, right? The people were told if you want to sponsor the event for free, you can donate things to go into the swag bags. Then they weren't told how many things they need to bring. So like, oh, we're gonna need 500 swag bags, so please prepare 500 items to go into the bag. I also think, just logistically speaking, this is odd because how is it gonna fit? You have 120 authors coming. You don't know how many people are bringing stuff for swag bags because they said you could either ship it to us or you could bring it the day of. How big is the tote bag you're gonna give people, right? Because what if some people decide to bring posters or something, right? Will that fit in the swag bag? Basically, if they printed 500 drawstring bags, without knowing the size of things that people are donating to the bags, logistically, that's going to be a nightmare just to pack it. So it literally sounded like they had absolutely no idea what was happening with the swag bags. And also, what do you mean you could bring it the day of? How are you going to pack that? Do you have staff on site that at 7 a.m. in the morning are going to be packing hundreds and hundreds of items into these bags for when the attendees arrive at 10?
You registered with a wristband. For both authors and attendees, they had the same wristbands. Some of them, not everybody had a wristband. I didn't. And the people who donated items for the swag bags, yeah, they were just told those were thrown away. And so that's why no one had anything. And so I know what you're thinking. There must have been a replacement for all of this. There must have been something. No. I was like, what is going on upstairs on the ground floor of the convention hall? You know what the grand entrance was for this magical book festival? This is it. The convention hall provided that sign. Those ketchup and mustard looking things on the table, those are the wristbands. Note there is nary a streamer or a helium balloon or a banner. Anything to say, hey, this is the event you paid $150 for. Come on down. Even though I know these videos have gotten a lot of attention and everyone knows who everyone is at this point, I still blurred out faces to protect identity just because I don't play the game. But this was the event coordinator at registration. This was Friday morning. But yeah. So we get back from lunch and start selling books. And I attended the Writing Diversity BIPOC panel because one of my really good friends was a panelist and I wanted to watch and learn. It did not take place at 1. I couldn't remember if it was like 1:30 or 2 or what, but it was not at this time. But tell me why you put the BIPOC panel on the day where it was VIP only so fewer people would come to it.
That's weird. That's just weird. Look, I had a previous video where I talk about an artist who charged more to draw darker skin tones. And I was like, that's racist. And people are like, how's that racist? They're just charging more to draw things they don't know how to draw. That tells me that you don't draw people with darker skin tones. Why? I'm just saying, like, it's not explicitly up in your front, but it's some subliminal, in my opinion, right? Again, I get it. People like to draw people that look like them, right? I draw a lot of people that tend to look Asian with colored hair because that's what I look like. Exploring is good. And if you don't draw dark-skinned people, I would just ask why. But again, on a side thing, some people might defend this and be like, well, they were just, moving the schedule around and that's where they could fit the BIPOC panel. Again, why was this the only place you could fit the BIPOC panel? The day where not many people are coming. There might be some biases at play. I'm just gonna put it that way.
Do you not know about the Cruel Prince cosplay meetup? I did see some people in some awesome cosplays, but I have no idea what happened there. No idea about that. I have no idea if that ever happened or what. And I know what you're thinking. Percy, you were leaning really hard in that content creation room earlier. What's the deal with that? So the content
I just want you to see the content creation room, guys, because this is an absolute joke.
Creation room was open on Friday. I don't have a picture of it, but I'm gonna need you to trust me. You know that infamous picture from DashCon with the ball pit in the empty room? Picture that exactly without the ball pit. I know you're thinking, Percy, do you mean to tell me that this content creation room that was built...
All right, so here we have Laura on Fire Writes with her video
in Maryland for next year. And I was supposed to be an attending author at that. And I told her straight up, hell no. Like, I want a refund. I want nothing to do with you. I do not want to be associated with you. And that's that. As promised, here's the content creation room.
That was the content creation room that was promised. This looks like a dungeon, guys. I would imagine if it was like a content creation room, I would imagine there would be like booths. There would be, pretty arches you could take pictures with. Maybe, I don't know, a pop up of like Rice or somebody, like no tables, no cheers. Why does it look like the only light source is from the open door? Yeah, it looks like you're gonna go in here, and this is like one of the rooms in the back rooms, I'm talking about? Like, that's what that looks like. That was the content creation room that was promised.
As an amenity was just an empty conference room for people just to walk into and stand in. Yes, I am. So by the end of Friday, we're like, okay, we are all feeling gut punched because only 40 people showed up. We're trying to figure out how we can either cover our table fees or, God forbid, figure out a way to ship all of our extra books home. Because normally you ship books to the event, you don't pack stuff in your suitcase. Like, not only are we taking a loss on sales not sold, we're gonna have to take a loss on shipping books back. But we all calm down and be like, yo, look, this was just VIP day. We were told there's gonna be 500 tickets sold. Maybe the rest of them are the $50 general admission tickets. So we're just gonna see this huge crowd.
We'll see, guys, right? Do you think there's gonna be a huge crowd? Part 3.
Latest installment of the Willy Wonka experience with books. This is part 3 of what happened at A Million Lives Festival in Baltimore. So I'm at home, I'm in bed because I've used up all my mobility tokens for the next 3 days, and so I need to rest. But I've started with a headboard, might as well end with a headboard, keep it on theme. So in part 1, we had the lead up to the event. Part 2, we had Friday, the VIP day.
Let's hear Saturday.
This is part 3, Saturday, May 3rd, general admission day, where 500 people, or 600, depending on when you heard it,
They also estimated up to 800 sales, by the way.
Were supposed to attend. But in the fairness of TikTok journalism, I have to share everything about my experience, both the bad and the good. So on Saturday morning, we get to the convention center, and the event has doubled their decoration because this sign appeared at the front. We finally have a sign with an arrow giving direction to the registration.
Just look at this, guys. Look how sad this looks.
And it matches the original sign over here. So that was a good omen for the day. We took that as improvement. Unfortunately, though, the content creation room was unavailable. My friends and I were so excited to go create content in this designated area for posterity's sake, but we were told the content creation room was closed due to technical difficulties.
Was it closed because it looked like this and then everybody got mad? And so, because how can you have technical difficulties in a room with no tech?
So whatever that means aside, if you paid $55 to be here on Saturday, the content creation room that you were promised is no longer a thing. So you paid $55 to walk around the convention hall. And I guess technically to do cosplay meetups. So one of the amenities was just meeting with other people in a public place. But at this point, we're not even sure if people were actually getting registered. There was no way to tell who was an attendee, who was an author or vendor, or who was just a random person from the convention center who just happened to go to the basement. And so, yes, that wasn't fair to the people who paid a large sum of money just to get access to the space. But as an author, I was just happy that there were people.
That's a whole other thing again. I just think it's so interesting that they had no badges. Don't you think that's like the first thing you should get for an event? The ticket for the people that are going? I don't know, just a thought.
And just like the signs, it was an omen, like I said. Just as the decorations doubled, so did the attendance. We went from 40 to 80. And like I said, there was no way to actually count because we couldn't tell who was an attendee and who wasn't. But there were other issues from day 1 that bled into day 2. For example, there were mixed messages about this being a family-friendly event or this being an event where the romance authors could offer their, wares. Some people were told they could bring their kids and did. And I'm talking babies, toddlers.
Yep, in the Facebook group, people are posting pictures with their kids at the event. I'm not going to show you because I don't want to show random people's kids. But you got to take into account, guys, look, not all books are for people of all ages. There are a lot of books that are 18 plus. You know what I'm saying? So I do think that's very interesting that there was no distinguishment. There was no this is the 18 plus section and this is the YA, which stands for young adult. What classifies a book as YA is there cannot be anything sexual in it because that is not appropriate for a young adult audience. So yeah, that is a bit odd.
There's middle schoolers. And some authors were told that it's perfectly fine to display their not safe for work spicy art prints. So you got some art with, frankenbeans and tater tots out. Some vendors had lovely crocheted male appendages that were for sale. And I definitely am not holding one just slightly off camera right now.
No. Every single event that I've been to that offered anything inappropriate, you get boxed in a different section. You're in the 18 plus section, you are curtained off. Even if it's a mixed bag, like you have some appropriate things and you have some inappropriate things, you go into the 18 plus section just for legal reasons, right? Legally speaking, if you have middle schoolers walking around with crocheted appendages out in there for sale, yeah. That's not great, guys. Is that grounds for a lawsuit? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but sounds sus. Low-key, maybe the organizers knew the visitors would be much lower, they promised, and they hope people who didn't pay would come to make their lie less obvious. Maybe.
But let's bring it back to the panels, because we talked about that in part 2. I was supposed to be on a panel, I guess. I don't know when it started. No one knew when the panel started. I was never procured from my table and said, hey, go talk at your panel. So I just didn't go. But then we get to the narrator panel, where you had these lovely, talented professional narrators giving their expertise and knowledge to an audience. But when they got to their panel, there were no chairs. And remember, I said that I'm only going to report on what I saw with my own eyeballs, because I'm at my table hustling my books. And my buddy Jen walks over and says, you will never guess what's happening upstairs. Your talent was on the floor. Your paying attendees were on the floor. And the disrespect doesn't stop there. First of all, we had a lovely tattoo artist who was at the event giving flash tattoos. And I interacted with her for a total of like 10 seconds because my friend was getting tattooed and I was just, admiring the work. But she seemed really professional and very concentrated on what she was doing. Apparently, according to the tattoo artist, the event coordinator was saying very negative things about the tattoo artist during the event to the attendees.
If that is true, right? Because this is alleged, this is a word of mouth thing, but your event coordinator should not be trash talking the vendors at your event. Also, I saw like a post from the tattoo artist, right? The artwork looked really cute. They're really cute flash tattoos, right? Cute little doodles. That is unprofessional. If you truly did not like the vendor, don't bring the vendor on, right? You allowed this vendor to vent here. They seem completely normal. Well, right? We have Percy's vouching that they seem very normal. They seem normal from their social media posts.
And I'm not going to tell the tattoo artist story. That's hers to tell. But if you are in shock and awe that an event coordinator is talking poorly about someone she invited to the event during the event while they're still there, oh honey. So y'all remember back in part 2 when I brought out this map and I was super excited to be with all of my friends over in this row? And remember back in part 1 when I said that I was only going to report on what I saw with my own eyes and ears, but I was going to bring up an allegedly one time. And for those of you who are patient, so allegedly, my friends and I were all put up against the wall because we're the problem children and we're loud and inappropriate and don't want to be an embarrassment to the event. Now, obviously, I didn't hear this with my own ears, which is why I say that allegedly very hard. But this was said before the event. But according to some other authors, vendors, and attendees, the coordinator was still talking mad nonsense about us during the event.
Again, that is just straight unprofessional. You cannot be talking mad BS about your vendors. If you truly do not want them there, don't invite them.
Calling us difficult to work with, calling some of us divas. And so allegedly, the event coordinator and I had beef, which is odd because, honestly, I don't even know who she is, so this is a surprise to me. But again, this is all allegedly. And other than just the straight up disrespect, there was also some more unfulfilled promises. Like we had no water, like not even a water bottle on our table.
No, that's for safety reasons. No, that's bad. No, you need to make water and food accessible to all attendees and vendors. That's just a bare minimum. Also, wait, does the venue just not have water fountains? But no water bottles, nothing?
We were promised snacks. There was no snacks. And aside from the allegedly disrespectful reason why I was put at the table I was put at, some people didn't like that the heavily pregnant lady, that's me sitting on the floor, I'm big, was put at a table that was far away from the bathrooms. And that I didn't really care about, because I would just go up the escalator to the cleaner bathrooms that were on the ground floor of the convention center. But needless to say, an extraordinary level of disrespect for the people who paid to be at your event, what was there. It was apparent to everyone.
Yeah, well, I would say, I definitely understand the concern for her being pregnant, being far from the bathrooms. I would also say the one crumb is that maybe they just didn't know she was pregnant, Because if they did have to pay the deposit 18 months in advance. I don't know when the table arrangements were made, but there is a likelihood they didn't know.
Everyone involved. And now you're sitting here thinking, Percy, quit yapping. We want to hear about the ball. And I know y'all know what the ball looked like. What y'all don't know is what happened at the ball. Because I've seen a lot of people talk about the ball, but there's specific information that I witnessed that has not come out yet. And friends, we have another surprise.
Thank you,
Twist ending,
Jillian.
if you will. As I was filming this video, I got a notification from the event coordinator because she emailed us. And I want to see what's in that email.
Ooh, they got a twist. Yeah, spill the tea. So here we have another creator called Chloe York City, kind of like covering this as well.
Event that happened yesterday,
The ball.
the Fire Fest of Book Talk, and I haven't seen any mainstream press about it. And I'd really like to be able to help some of the authors affected. So let's talk about this. The event was called A Million Lives. It was in the making for about a year and a half.
I planned my pregnancy around this event like a clown.
But it looks like it was thrown together in 45 minutes.
This is the fantasy ball, by the way, guys. Take a look at this. The $250 ticket that you were promised a fantasy ball.
Like, even the Willy Wonka experience had decor. This was advertised as a black tie ball. But that's not even the most egregious part, because this was part of a whole weekend for romance and fantasy authors, wherein the authors paid to be able to sell their books at this event. But really, there were more authors than there were participants, and everyone lost money.
That is the problem too, right? When you have more vendors than participants, that is just a structural event planning issue. Because how can anybody profit like this?
I am now out about $2,000.
I didn't make table. I have never.
Yeah. So basically making table means you make the fee of you profit to cover the fee of the table. The fee was $150, by the way, which is low from my understanding. I don't know about book tables, but relative to art tables, it's low.
The person who put this together is also an author. She writes under the name Grace Willows, which makes this way sadder to me. But the company she did this under, Archer Events, she deleted most of their socials. And this is the only apology she's given.
Hi, everybody.
We gotta look at her apology.
I am wanting to issue a formal apology. I do understand that the ball tonight was not set up to standards. There were a lot of issues with getting set up, and it was not set up well. I want to apologize. If you would like a refund, please contact me, and I will issue a refund immediately. Thank you.
I like how the apology was talking about the ball and not the event point blank period, because the ball was a massive letdown. Don't get me wrong. What about the fact that y'all told all of these authors that there were going to be 500 to 600 tickets sold, right? The attendees are going to be less than the amount of tickets sold because some people will get sick, they can't make it, they get a flat tire, but you don't have a 90% difference between the amount of tickets sold and the amount of attendees. That just does not happen. That means you lied. What about that? That was never mentioned.
But it's not just about that one ball or lack thereof. The deception goes further than that. Here's an indie bookseller who declined to work with Grace and whose name she still used. And just listen to what a logistical nightmare this event was.
Not even just the attendance level. There was no signage. There was no panel schedules. There was a lack of communication. I'll say it that way. At every point, everything was like fucked up or just half-assed. There was no water there. There was no swag bags for people who paid to go to this. There's no badges, wristbands. I have never done so poorly in an event before.
But I had not seen any advertising. And then I saw the only posts on Archer Fantasy Events socials were offering the tickets at 40% off.
Don't forget about the fact that a lot of these authors, including Percy, paid to sponsor the event, and they were promised social media coverage, etc. That did not happen.
That's when I knew that like ain't nobody was coming. That's when I knew. It was even worse than what you're seeing.
It's like she went to dollar store to get one bag of fake rose petals as the decoration.
I sent my husband a picture of it, and he said it looks like a Pokemon tournament.
There was no DJ. Our security guard, sorry for us, and brought a shower speaker from his home, and there were a total of around mostly authors that came to the ball.
I'm going to link as many authors as I can find who attended in the caption, and hopefully we can all support them.
The security guard's the GOAT, man, but the fact the security guard had to step up because you guys dropped the ball so massively is just so disappointing. Well, and then Archer Fantasy Events, so this is their Instagram page. On May 5th, they posted refunds. I wholeheartedly apologize for how the event turned out this weekend. We are currently processing refunds as fast as we can. All refunds will be processed by May 31st. We thank and appreciate you for your patience. By the way, on that post, the comments were restricted. Then another statement, we take full responsibility for the way that A Million Lives was handled. We're doing refunds for every attendee, author, and vendor. We are also canceling all of our future events and we'll be processing refunds for those as well. And the comments aren't looking too promising. So Diana writes, has anyone received a refund yet? As of today, I hadn't, and we are getting pretty close to the 31st. This was posted a week ago, so this was probably like 2 days prior or something. Christina says, nope, just sent my 5th communication regarding refunds with no comment. Seems like this promise was a farce just like the event. That was 4 days ago, so that would have been May 31st. And then Diana, the same Diana, says, as today is the last day for refunds, I hope everyone is getting them today. If not, please reach out to your banks and lawyers about this fraudulent event and broken promise for refunds. And that, according to another commenter, allegedly the person organizing this is in the hospital, and that's why refunds are delayed. And then May 7th, they posted a list of authors and vendors that were there for people to support, which, like, I guess good, but I feel like giving the refunds is more important. And then we have this page, indieauthorconnect.com, A Million Lives Recovery. And it reads, below is a list of authors, narrators, and vendors who attended the Million Lives Book Festival, many of whom were left with financial debt due to flights, hotels, shipping, and table fees, only to be misled. If you would like to support any of these authors, please click their photo or name to be taken to a link and be provided where you can support them. Sorry, my cats are being funny. Big boy is over here. This is Corn, and Chip is in the tunnel. Like, his butt is out of the tunnel. But yeah, here are the authors that were at the event. They can see authors, vendors. Wow, a long list. So we have a June 2nd update from Percy.
We got another email. We got this on Sunday. I did block out some personal information because even though none of these emails are private because we're all included on them, I'm not about to do personal information on my page, so I censored it out. Pause to read. I'm gonna be over here.
So it reads, dear authors and vendors, I'm very sorry that refunds were not distributed by the date that I sent. All of the money for this event went into the event and there's no money left over. When I chose the date for the refund, I did not think there were any issues getting a loan by the date to process the refunds and for the featured guests that were promised fees and hotel rooms. But with every personal loan application came a denial either instantly or a few days later. The last loan application that I filled out were supposed to be processed and had promised of getting accepted as I was using collateral, but they were not processed in time. This weekend, other than my trip to the hospital, has been filled with applying to every instant loan possible and getting denied for everyone. I am just very shocked that she couldn't qualify for a loan. Your credit has to be astronomically low to not qualify. Even lower if you put up collateral and you still can't qualify. Like, your credit score needs to be like double digits for this to be happening, I swear. Because depending on what loan company you go to, you're gonna get a sucky interest, but you can qualify.
This is part 2 of the email. She does address whatever happened in the hospital. Again, personal information, I blocked that out. But also, hospital rumors? Girl, you told us, whatever. Anyway, so for some context behind that.
Yeah, that's the thing, the hospital rumors. It's not a rumor because you said that you were in the hospital, so.
That email, she had told us a few weeks ago that she was applying for a loan to try to get us all refunds. I did get confirmation from another author that he got his table fund refunded to him, but not through PayPal, through a Square invoice. And although at least one person did say that they would be filing a lawsuit today, June 2nd, I have not seen any court documents about that yet. Do I think she's telling the full truth in that email? No, I don't. I don't think we're ever going to get the full truth of what happened or what's going on. Am I ever going to get my money back? But here's the thing, guys. I'm too pregnant to fight. The reason I'm keeping you guys updated is not because I want my refund. I do this because what I saw at A Million Lives broke me a little. And then what I'm hearing post the event is breaking me even more. Because what do you mean there are other events like this? What do you mean this is a common pattern of behavior?
Yep.
What do you mean I just watched hundreds of creative small business owners get destroyed right out the gate? And what do you mean this keeps continuing just because nobody ever says anything?
Because here we have Caitlin writes a book, and Caitlin posted, there's like audio that's probably copyrighted, but it reads, it's June 1st, no money yet. Run my money, Grace. And it says A Million Lives update. So here is somebody who seems to have not gotten their refunds, even though the refund was promised by May 31st. And of course, from the email that we saw, it really seems like people are not going to be getting their refunds anytime soon. This absolutely sucks. I feel so bad for all the authors. Again, don't blame the authors that attended because they were victims to this. The authors were promised a cool event that a lot of people were going to be attending, potential clients, potential customers, right? Potential new readers. They were told, the 120 authors who paid a $150 table fee were all told that, and allegedly also told that bigger names were going to be there as well. And they were told that there were at least 500 ticket sales, possibly upwards of 800 ticket sales. And they didn't see anything, didn't hear about anything. Nobody was there. Only like 80 people showed up. A content creation room was promised, and the room was dusty, empty, a literal corporate room with nothing in it. A ballroom was promised, and the ball was office chairs and office tables with a tiny line of like rose petals. That was it. 120 authors, each author had to pay $150 table fees, right? Percy estimated that there are 40 people on the VIP day. So 40 people on the VIP day meant 150. But I'm gonna like break this up. Okay, let's say 20 people paid the 150. There was a bunch of people at the ball, right? So if we add the people at the ball, there was probably like maybe 25 people at the ball based on the pictures. Those people probably paid $250 for their ticket, right? So 9,250 for day one. Let's say day two had 80 attendees and those attendees paid $50, right? Let's discount the VIPs because the VIPs were able to go both days. So it was probably only 40 new people at 50. So we have 11,000, right? And then we add the 1,800 from the author paying the table fee. Now we have almost $30,000, right? And some authors like Percy did pay to sponsor the event. So let's just generously throw in a lowball number of $1,000, assuming 5 authors chose the $250 sponsorship tier. You're making like $30,000 from this event. Like that was just money that came in. Where did that money go? Like renting the convention center and stuff like that can't be cheap. Like, was this a scam or was this somebody that was trying to take people's money and run away? I don't necessarily think possibly they were intending to scam people out the gate, because then you wouldn't attach your face to it, right? Whereas the person who was like fronting it, the author Grace, has her face essentially attached to it. If you were directly trying to scam people, you probably would not do that. You would act as like a third-party entity essentially, so you could get away with it without it being attached to your brand. And it seemed like from word of mouth, they've had previous events that have been relatively successful. So people assumed this event was going to be successful. It sounds like at the end of the day, this is somebody that wanted to host an event. It went completely over their head. It was just one bad business practice after another that caused this entire event to snowball, right? So the obvious bad business practice number one that we've touched upon is the pricing structure. This is a very, very poor pricing structure for an event because the pricing structure does not encourage people to spend more money, which, just to be blunt, the whole point of an event is to profit. Events, the first time you host them, typically will run negative, but like the second, third time you host it, you might start profiting after that. But you don't want to run massively in the negative, you know? You will probably most likely be negative the first time you run it. But to have like your 2-day ticket be 3 times the price of your 1-day ticket, kind of crazy. Nobody's going to be buying your 2-day ticket then, right? People are only going to pay for the cheap option. But the big issue also is no marketing. If you don't market the event, you're not going to get event attendees. Therefore, you're not going to get ticket sales. That's already going to be an issue as it is. It seemed like they did a good job of reaching out to the authors, get authors to come in, but they didn't do a good job of promoting the event to attendees. I myself am like a book talk enjoyer. I read a ton of books. I love books. I am up in book talk. Never heard of this event. Never heard about it happening. Not even a word of mouth. Nobody mentioned it, whatever. You know, I don't live in Baltimore. Maybe that's why I didn't hear about it. But it really seems like there was no marketing for the event that caused it to fail. Now we have the issue of the event was not promoted well, so there's not very many ticket sales. Then maybe the organizers started panicking because they're like, wait, we paid X amount of money to rent the convention center. We currently have Y amount of ticket sales and we're not making enough money. So the issue then comes in about lying to the vendors, right? Lying to the vendors, telling the vendors 500 tickets were sold when that just did not happen. And the shitty thing is this happens in the industry, not just event management, but other industries in general. They go by the fake it till you make it mentality. But the issue is it's high risk, high reward. You either fake it till you make it or you fake it and you become a scammer. You literally fraud. People do that in the industry. They do. This one, they just got caught for doing it because they didn't manage to recoup their losses. They lied to the authors to get more authors to come in by promising a lot of people attending. There is no way you have 10% of attendees versus ticket sales. That is just not possible. It just doesn't happen unless like a natural disaster or like a health crisis like COVID happens. And then all these authors show up, and the event was hosted so poorly, with the hotel that was promised for the featured authors suddenly didn't happen. So there had to be a different hotel, right? No flights. The authors didn't even know where to go to set things up. Was this somebody trying to scam, or was this a horrifically planned event that, with very, very poor business practices, snowballed into this disaster? It's up to you. It doesn't seem like they intended to scam in the beginning, but over the slippery slope of the bad business practices, lying to the authors, etc., now you're a scammer. You've turned into a scammer through your poor business practices and your continued choice to lie. And then now the refunds haven't been issued yet. Allegedly, there's health issues. In the apology, she only apologized for the ball, not the entire event that was poorly mismanaged and the lying to the attendees and stuff like that, the authors. But just show love to the authors. They did not deserve this. This is a horrifically run event. Wow, it is just